Hello and welcome to this commentated speedrun of Pikmin Adventure. The main aim of this commentary is to just explain my thought process, as well as for anyone who hasn't seen a speedrun of this game before, explain sort of what's going on, because unlike the Pikmin series that it's based off of, this game is very fast-paced and has much more focus on combat than it does on strategy. So with the speedrun, the goal is more to kill the enemies as fast as possible as opposed to rebuilding your ship or finding fruit or whatever it is that you're doing in Pikmin. So to start off, I'm controlling the Mii that is dressed as Captain Olimar, the one with the space helmet, and the blue guy, the blue Pikmin with the circle underneath him, is just a computer-controlled ally who will be here throughout the entire run, for better or for worse. And the main objective of each level is simply to get to the end. There's a ship at the end that you escape with, presumably like in the Pikmin games, you would go in your rocket ship to escape the night-dwelling enemies that are much more dangerous. So yeah, you just run through the level, kill the enemies, and when all the enemies die, the path opens up forward to enable you to get closer to your ship. Now what you just saw there was Olimar leveled up to level 5, and in order to level up you have to collect 3 of those orange blobs. For every 3 you collect, you level up, and when you reach level 5 and 10, you get an extra bonus, being Olimar will get 5 extra Pikmin to throw for both levels 5 and 10, and also a much more significant boost in attack power than he would get from just say level 1 to level 2. So what I just did there was a question block with nectar popped up out of the ground. I rode on top of the question block and then dashed off it to get on top of the gate so that I could start crossing it before it got all the way to the bottom. And what you're seeing here is I'm intentionally letting the boss eat me because the animation of him eating me is so long that it enables all of the Pikmin, it gives them enough time to kill him. If I were to have instead dodged the attack, he would have just shaken off all my Pikmin and the fight would have been much longer. Unfortunately though, whether he chooses to eat you or not is dependent on RNG, so you aren't going to get eaten every fight even if you try to. Now explaining more about the moment-to-moment gameplay, Olimar is controlled with the gamepad. You move with the stick, you whistle with ZR, and you throw your Pikmin by tapping on the screen where you want them to go. So by, for example, tapping on the question blocks, I'll throw a Pikmin at the question block, destroy it, and then I can collect the nectar. What whistling does is it brings all your Pikmin plus your ally back to you so that you can continue using them. This is very useful for whenever your Pikmin get shaken off by an enemy, because when they get shaken off by an enemy, they'll sort of get stunned and just lay there on the ground being useless, so you have to whistle them to bring them back up. The main downside of whistling, however, is that your ally gets whistled back to you, and when your ally gets back to you, he'll stick to your head, and while he's on your head, you can only throw your ally and you can't throw Pikmin, and the animation for throwing your ally is relatively long, meaning that oftentimes, even though you may have to wait for Pikmin to walk back to you, it's sometimes in your best interest to simply not whistle at all and just wait for your Pikmin to come back to you. There is, however, a strategy you can use to mitigate that, being that if you dash by sliding across the screen, if you dash right before your ally lands on your head, then your ally will not stick to your head but instead fall off. And that's used many times throughout the run to allow me to whistle my Pikmin without having to deal with the long catch and throw animations for my ally. So what I'm doing here is I'm going forward a bit past that circle on the ground so that the next enemies will start to spawn, but then I go back around through this flower field to collect nectar. And the enemy spawning animation is so long that loses barely any time compared to just waiting for them, and you get additional nectar, which makes you stronger. Now what I'm doing here, you're going to see a lot throughout the run. I throw my ally into the warp, which will start a timer, and when that timer expires, the next area will load. If I were to go in there just with my ally, then the next area would load immediately. However, if you throw your ally and then, while the timer's ticking, go and collect nectar, you can basically be collecting that nectar and then save the time that it would have taken you to walk or dash to the warp. So that is used a ton throughout this run in many levels, where you would just throw your ally into the warp. Now this part was a bit awkward, where I missed the rock throw to hit the beeb. Rocks, I'm not sure I fully understand how they work, but there is a chance of stunning an enemy whenever you hit them with a rock. And many of the bosses, whenever they get hit by a rock, get stunned. However, what you just saw there was, instead of throwing rocks at him, I sacrificed my ally. And the reason I did that was so that his attack cycle would end immediately, as opposed to having just to wait for him to roll for like 20 seconds. He would roll around and be almost impossible to hit. What you saw there was I whistled my ally to the ship. Similar to the warps, whenever you enter the ship, a timer starts, and when it expires, the ship will take off regardless of whoever's in there. This is so that if you're playing with 5 people, someone can't just camp out the ship and never enter it and basically soft lock the game. But it still gives time for everyone to get in the ship if they want to. However, if I were to whistle my ally and have him come to the ship with me right as I enter, then I don't have to wait for that timer to expire, and the animation will start immediately. That is, the ship leaving, it'll leave immediately instead of having to wait for the ally. And that's used a lot by the ships, but it's also used for the green warps. I didn't use it there because the ally was close enough that the time it would have taken to whistle would have been longer than the time it would wait for your ally to just walk over. Now for this section, there's a neat little trick where you can start throwing your Pikmin before the beebs even exit their capsules, because as the Pikmin is in the air, it will still continue moving towards the beeb, and then right as the beeb comes out, there'll already be a Pikmin right in front of it. This just lets you kill them slightly faster and saves a couple of seconds. This part of the level is very heavily based around these blue dash panels, which, as you can probably see, whenever your ally is on your head and you walk on top of it, you'll get launched into the next area. These are pretty straightforward in that you want to whistle a little bit before you actually reach the panel so that your ally will get stuck to your head right as you step onto the panel.
30 seconds remaining.
And that was level 3. So far this run has gone pretty smoothly. Although there's small improvements that could be made in each level, this would be something I would be happy to show off. Unfortunately, the next level, there was a lot of bad RNG, and as a result I lost a lot of time. But I chose to go on because the main purpose of this run is more so to show off the different strategies. I wasn't really trying to get a PB, and more so trying to show off what this game has to offer. So right there I intentionally used the fact that the ally isn't gonna stick to my head whenever I dash, so that he'll get whistled to me and then just land on the ground next to that button, and we both have to press the buttons. So I throw a rock at the boss to stun him. Unfortunately, that's another RNG thing, in that it's entirely possible to throw 3 rocks at him and have none of them stun him. And then, okay, as we saw there, I clipped a bomb, 2 bombs, inside of the boss to enable me to do massive damage to all of its weak spots. Unfortunately, my streak of good luck ended there because he decided to use this attack. The rolling attack is the worst case scenario because he sucks all of his weak spots inside of him, which prevents you from attacking him for a couple of seconds. Every other attack, you can still attack him while he's doing it, but this one you cannot, and he used it 3 times. Actually, he's going to use it another time in this second phase here, where you have to destroy his legs. So, yeah, that's just, this level is a major reset point for a reason. I decided to use the one remaining rock to stun him, and fortunately, it actually did stun him this time. So when you destroy his leg weak point, he'll flip over and reveal the weak point on his belly, which, once destroyed, he'll die, and the ship will appear. So, like I said before, this level is a major reset point in the run, simply because you can get completely screwed over by bad RNG. Unfortunately, though, the bad RNG is just something you've got to live with for these types of runs, because I don't think a perfect run of this game will ever happen, simply because of the massive amount of good luck you would need. You can, however, learn lots of backup strats and just get good at the game to help mitigate whenever you do happen to get bad RNG. So what's going on right here is there are going to be 3 waves of enemies that are coming in. I'm going to try and get to level 5, which means I have to collect all the nectar, and my ally can get absolutely none of it, at least from the question blocks. It's okay if he gets some now, because I've already got to level 5. Also, I'm choosing to not grab the hammer immediately, which is a power-up that you've already seen, that gives my Pikmin extra power, where instead of me throwing them and having them land and stick to the enemy, they'll do sort of a ground pound onto the enemy that does twice the damage of a normal attack, but they won't stick to the enemy, meaning I have to constantly throw at the Pikmin at the enemy instead of letting them do all the work for me. One major advantage of the hammer is that it can destroy blocks very quickly. Trying to do this level without a hammer would be a very bad idea because you need to destroy a couple of blocks throughout it. So right here you're going to see me once again use the trick where you throw your ally into the warp so that you can collect the nectar and save the time it would take you to walk to the warp. The other major advantage of that is also that your ally can't steal any of the nectar, meaning that I was able to get all 7 of those nectar globs instead of potentially needing to share some of it with your ally. For every 3 nectar you collect, your ally will collect 1, or will at least try to collect 1 if you don't do anything to prevent that from happening. And in a casual playthrough, that's relatively balanced, but even in a casual playthrough, it can become quite annoying whenever your ally just tries to collect all the nectar, or just recklessly runs through a field of nectar trying to chase an enemy down and then steal like half your nectar. Oh yeah, you're supposed to destroy those blocks to get through there, but I guess the devs didn't realize that you can just sort of hug the wall and the ground extends just slightly far enough outwards that you can walk along the edge there. So onto the boss. Unfortunately, this boss didn't go too hot. It is possible to one-cycle him, so I attempt to throw my ally onto his head right as he goes up. Whenever he's up on top of that platform, you can't throw your Pikmin high enough to reach him, so you just have to deal with this shower of enemies and bombs. But then you do have a chance to attack him when he comes down. Unfortunately, due to circumstances, he got stunned, which means he got tilted away from me, but while he was tilted away from me, I wasn't able to hit him with my hammers. Hammers, similar to rocks, by the way, have a chance of stunning the enemy as well, although the chance of stunning with a hammer is much lower than with a rock, so you should never really count on the hammer stunning. But yeah, that boss fight can be done in one cycle, but because I wasn't paying close enough attention to realize that he got stunned, it ended up taking 2 cycles. So this level is probably the most interesting level in the speedrun, aside from maybe level 13, which has a similar property. Being this level as well as mission 13, as you'll see later, there's actually two different routes that you can take that are both equally viable. For this level you can either choose to collect the hammer power-up, or you can choose to, well, not collect it. And the main advantage of the hammer power-up is having extra damage, but the hammer power-up also causes you to throw at a slower rate, and is also just harder to control, because if the enemy is moving around quickly, it can be difficult to land a hit on them. Normally I would be at level 5 here, but unfortunately my ally stole too much nectar, so I have to face these guys with only 5 Pikmin, whenever I would normally hope to be facing them with 10. And these guys have a proclivity to hop around a lot more than usual, which would make them very difficult to hit with a hammer, by the way, which is why I choose to not collect the hammer. You haven't seen the hammer yet because it's in a question block, but the hammer's also going to pop out of that guy. Also unfortunate that my ally decided to pick up and throw the bomb. Normally I would throw the bomb at these pump hogs, as they're called, but because my ally decided to pick it up, there's no bomb to throw. And that basically sums up why the ally is both a blessing and a curse. He can be used for cool strats like what you saw there, where I throw him in the warp and collect the nectar, but he can also steal all your nectar and throw away your bombs. Anyway, we're going to use this bomb to kill all those guys. If you had the hammer power up, you wouldn't really need the bomb, although I'd still recommend using it anyway. For this next part, if you had the hammer, these guys you could kill in actually one hit, depending on where you're standing. But without the hammer, you're gonna have to rely on bombs. Unfortunately, I slightly messed up the throw, so I wasn't able to kill all of them, but I was still able to do a lot of damage. And most of the time, even if you get good throws, you won't kill all of them anyways. So don't rely on the bombs being super consistent unless you've practiced it like nothing else, like your life depends on it. I will confess that this section would be easier with a hammer, because the beebs will die instantly to the hammer instead of having a small delay from having to throw Pikmin on them. But despite that, I think overall the hammer is maybe not necessarily worse, but worse for me personally. Other runners may prefer the hammer though. The hammer also gives you the safety net of you can take damage without dying. If you die, you lose a lot more time than if you just lose a power-up. The reason I whistled again was simply to call the Pikmin that were stuck on the other side of the gate over. Although you can't throw any of your Pikmin, you can still whistle them while your ally's on your head. And then I just threw him away because, well, it doesn't lose any time. Using the ally warp strategy is also useful for the hammer power-ups as well as others, because it basically allows you to effectively skip the animation of it. Unfortunately, I messed up the ally sacrifice a little bit there, but I was able to get it a second time. You can throw rocks at him, But one thing that is interesting about rocks is enemies that have a lot of health are less likely to get stunned by them than enemies that are low on health. So if you run up to him at the start of the fight and just chuck rocks at him, sure, there's a chance you'll stun him, but I wouldn't count on it unless I'm doing individual level runs where it would be faster to use rocks. But for full game runs, I think it's better to go for the sacrifice your ally strats, even though they are admittedly slightly slower, with the exception, as you'll see at the end of this level, where there are no rocks. So, spoiler alert. I forgot to mention during Mission 3, but throughout the run there are 4 of these levels that are time challenges, where the lose condition, instead of it being whenever you run out of hearts, it's if you run out of time. And instead of collecting nectar, you're collecting timers. So you just start off at level 10, and pretty much all the enemies will die almost instantly just because you're already at level 10. And the objective has been slightly shifted away from killing enemies towards getting through the areas quickly. So the timer in the top center, if that hits 0, it's game over, and a massive time loss if you game over. The timer in the top right is just in-game time, and the time that's below the timer is the mastery time. Also, what you just saw there was a whistle cancel. It is one of the 2 things this game has to offer that could really be considered tech. Everything else is more just about having good movement, as well as being able to react and adapt to the variety of different situations that these enemy RNG can throw at you. So yeah, here's the boss. If you don't sacrifice your ally, you're going to be watching him roll around the battlefield for like 20 seconds, and it's almost impossible to hit him while he's doing that. There is a very small chance of stunning him with your hammer, and if you happen to get super lucky, you can get a really low time on this, but I very rarely actually get the hammer stun, and when I do, it's whenever he's already at low health, which, like rocks, will increase the chance of getting a stun. But if he's already at low health, then it doesn't really matter that he got stunned because he's about to die anyway. Anywho, we're almost halfway through the run, and we've reached the second main boss, the Wollywog. So this level starts out kind of interesting in that we're going to use the bomb to destroy these 5 question blocks that all contain nectar in them. And then we're just going to level up and cross our fingers that our Pikmin ally does not take too much. There's almost nothing you can do to stop him from taking nectar here. There's just so much. Also, what I'm doing is I'm throwing my Pikmin so that they'll pick up the nectar and bring it to me. Because similar to the actual Pikmin games, you can actually have Pikmin pick up objects and bring them to you. These are really only little heart pickups that restore your health, coins, which are used in Nintendo Land Plaza. They can pick up nectar, as you just saw, and they can also pick up timers. Anyways, so this boss has a very interesting strat, or little secret tidbit, I guess, in that I started by throwing all my Pikmin to the side, or all that I could at least, because in order to quickly kill this boss, you need to stand very close to its tongue as he spits it out at you. But if you stand close to his tongue, he might kill like half of your Pikmin, which will prevent you from being able to attack him as effectively. So I throw my Pikmin to the side so that he doesn't kill them. But anyway, interestingly, whenever you throw a Pikmin as Olimar, Olimar also has a sort of hitbox. He can sort of punch enemies that are nearby him. So even if you don't have any Pikmin, you can still technically deal damage by punching enemies that you're close to, which I believe was also a mechanic in the actual Pikmin games. But for some reason, if you punch the Wollywog's tongue, it'll get stunned instantly, which is what you use for the first phase. In the second phase, his tongue doesn't have a hitbox, so you can't stun it. But yeah, that's how you do the Wollywog fast. And we're on to the second half of the levels. We've moved into the fall season. At the start we were in the spring, and then we sort of moved on to the summer, and now we're in the fall, and we'll finish out in the winter. It's very interesting how they have it set up like that, in my opinion. And we're also being introduced to the Vine Whip, which I think is probably my favorite power-up casually. And that's because what it does is, at least for Olimar, it makes his Pikmin act like homing missiles, which makes it a lot easier to hit enemies. Unfortunately, they also become a lot slower, so it takes them longer to reach the enemy, which means in some situations it might be better to just not have the whip. But those situations really only need to be considered in like the extra levels, which we don't worry about here. Here's another interesting usage for Olimar's punching. For some reason, these bomb guys, when you punch them, they'll stand still instead of moving, which enables you to kind of stun lock them. Also, normally I don't kill two of them. Normally I kill one and let the other three blow up, but that guy did not blow up because, just bad RNG, he wasn't close enough to me. So I decided to kill him, and because it's the first time I've actually killed that guy, I learned today that he has 6 nectar inside of him instead of 2. So that might actually be something I'll implement in future runs. Killing that guy instead of the guy in the top left, which is who I usually kill. Next up right here, as far as I can remember, this is the only part of the run where you actually take advantage of the fact that you can push enemy capsules to push those guys off the ledge. If you get really lucky, you can actually push 2 and maybe even all 3 of them off the edge to end the fight like instantly. But as long as you can get at least 1, you're golden. So right here, I stand here, and unfortunately I got bad RNG. If you stand right there, there's a chance that that guy will just charge at you and then go straight off the cliff. But unfortunately that didn't happen, so I just had to kill him instead. But I'm making the most of the situation by at least collecting the nectar he drops, which will make the boss fight at the end go by a little bit faster. We're going to use a bomb to dispatch of some of these guys, and then finish the rest off with our Pikmin. Unfortunately, they were so scattered about that I was actually just tapping on the enemies, trying to throw Pikmin onto them, but I had no Pikmin to throw at them. So this boss, I believe, is based off of the old bear enemies. He's got 3 weak spots instead of 1, as you can see. And we're just going to use the rocks to stun him and then throw Pikmin on him. Like I said before, if you do manage to stun enemies, it's basically a free kill. And yeah, that was level 9. Level 9 I think has probably one of the widest variety of interesting strategies that you can use. So this is level 10. It is probably my least consistent level, not just in terms of my own ability to execute the strats, which could use some improvement of course. I could probably use more improvement on this level than most other levels, but it's also inconsistent because this level, unlike most levels, has 2 bosses, or like 2 bosses that involve a lot of RNG, meaning it effectively has twice as much RNG as many of the other levels do, which, as you'll see, I end up getting bad RNG on both of this level's major boss fights. But anyways, right here we're trying to kill these bomb guys before they explode so that we can get nectar. If we just let them explode, it will make the fight end a bit faster because we just need to make them all ignited and then they'll explode a short bit later. But then they won't drop any nectar, and as such will be a bit under-leveled. Anywho, This is this level's first boss. It is just a repeat of King B that you've seen many times before. However, the major difference is, unlike a lot of the other King B's fights, we don't have the hammer, which means whenever he's rolling around, we cannot actually damage him. We have to force him out of his rolling state. And right there, we did. I tried to peg him with a rock to perhaps stun him, but the Bulborbs pushed him over. And then my ally decided that he would grab that rock, which prevented me from throwing another rock at him. And then the third rock broke on the nectar. So a series of unfortunate events occurred that caused a pretty significant time loss, but I normally would have just reset at that point, because that combined with the bad RNG in stage 4 is just too much time lost for the run to go on. But, like I said before, the purpose of this run is more so to show off the strategies than it is to try and get a PB. So anyway, this room is a lot of fun. These Bulborbs are kind of interesting in that if you throw your Pikmin onto them, they'll charge at you, but then they'll hit the walls. And whenever a Bulborb hits a wall, all of the Pikmin that are on top of it get shaken off instantly. So interestingly, you might actually need to destroy the wall to make yourself a bit more vulnerable so that you can kill the Bulborbs quickly. But yeah, and then the last wave of enemies goes down real fast. Just use the vine to home in on them, and the Pikmin deal a lot of damage. Normally the vines don't destroy the blocks like that. Normally I'm able to get on top of them, but for some reason, guess it just wasn't my lucky day, so I had to do it the intended way. Anyway, in this boss we once again get bad RNG where those little beebs spawned in a very unfortunate spot, which caused the boss, due to a weird, I guess, physics glitch, to get shot 100 feet in the air. And whenever he was that high, I was not able to hit him with the rocks, which this boss shakes Pikmin off religiously. So if you don't stun him, this boss takes quite a while. And because it took so many rocks to stun him, I lost a lot of time on him. So this level can be done actually like almost a whole minute faster if you have good RNG combined with good execution. But unfortunately I had abysmal RNG combined with relatively okay execution, I think. I don't want to be too harsh on myself for that, but I do recognize that there's places I could improve there, even without the bad RNG. Anyway, this level is probably my favorite level because it involves a really cool trick that you'll see right at the start. So if you don't know what's going on, this trick seems completely inconsequential. Because you're just going to see me, I'm just going to jump across a gap, and that's all there is to it, right? Well, that gap is actually too wide for you to be able to jump across. If a casual player were to just try and jump across that gap, they would fall straight into the pit. And so what you have to do instead is use a mechanic where the game is kind of forgiving in that if you try and run off the edge, it'll do this thing where instead of letting you just immediately fall off, it lets you walk in mid-air for a short period of time. In platforming games, this is called coyote time. But the difference here is that instead of it just letting you walk on air for a bit before falling, it also pushes you back a tad. So what you gotta do is dash while you're sort of walking in mid-air in order to just barely make it across that gap. And that is extremely hard to do without a consistent setup, which there is a consistent setup, being you have to walk slightly off, let the game push you back onto the platform so that you know you're right at the edge, and then after it pushes you back, you have to walk forward again and then dash right afterwards. So that's a lot more consistent than just straight up running and jumping, which, although running and jumping is faster, it's not worth losing 10 to 15 seconds just to save like half a second to avoid the setup. And the setup can also be done extremely fast, to the point where if you're not looking for it, it can be done fast enough to where you wouldn't even notice. But yeah, that trick alone basically defines the stage because the rest of it is pretty straightforward. You also may have noticed there is a gigantic stack of bricks that I walked on top of right after doing the jump. That is also a bit tricky to get on top of if you don't know what you're doing. But recently I found a way to consistently make a staircase that I could climb up. I botched the execution just a tad and had to whistle my ally, because the ally will attempt to destroy your staircase. But fortunately, I was able to make it on top. Anyway, here comes the Pinchipede boss fight. Casually, I think this is the most difficult fight in the game, but from speedrunning, it's actually one of the easier ones. The hard part comes in this part here where you're hitting the question blocks. You have to hit them in a specific order to prevent your ally from stealing your nectar, because if your ally steals more than 3 nectar, you're not going to be able to get to level 10. And getting to level 10 compared to being at level 9 is 40 seconds faster. So it is absolutely crucial that you get to level 10. And I was actually able to get to level 11, which isn't too common, but it's definitely nice when it happens. But yeah, level 10 or 11 lets you do this phase a lot faster because you kill all the segments a lot faster. Unfortunately though, he has like a sliver left and I wasn't able to do it. And it can be very annoying trying to hit a single segment on this little worm guy. But yeah, being at level 10, having those extra Pikmin combined with the hammer does so much more damage, which is why it is absolutely crucial to get to level 10. And this is actually one of the reasons... Oh, hold on, actually. Right here we intentionally take damage so that his attack cycle ends immediately. And because if we didn't take damage, his third phase would be a nightmare. His third phase is way easier without the hammer than with, because he moves around so quickly that it's almost impossible to actually hit him with the hammer. But anyway, as I was saying, you have to hit the blocks in the right order so that your ally will be more focused on hitting blocks than stealing nectar, and that enables you to get to level 10, which enables you to save 40 seconds. And this is actually one of the main reasons that I wanted to do this run as opposed to commentating over my personal best, because in my personal best, believe it or not, I actually botched the setup and I was not able to get to level 10. And honestly, I'd rather have a slower run that shows off more strategies than a faster run that's mainly faster because of getting very good RNG. Simply because I think this run is more in the spirit of the speedrun of this game than my personal best is. And that's not to say that my personal best is bad by any means. There was still a lot good about it. But I think that this run does a better job of showing off what you can do. Anyways, as I had mentioned earlier, this in stage 6 you can choose whether or not you want to get the power-up. Right here I actually did choose to get the Knuckle Seed, which it's similar to the hammer in that instead of your Pikmin sticking to the enemies, they'll do a single attack that's more powerful than a basic attack, but they won't stick to your enemy, so you have to continuously attack. The difference here is that the hammer was very slow and powerful, whereas the knuckle is very speedy. If you tap super fast, you can kill the enemies almost instantly. Unfortunately, I'm not a crazy button masher and can't tap fast enough to kill the enemies quickly, but I can still, it still kills them fast enough that it doesn't matter too much. You do, however, have to be careful, because this game has a surprising degree of physicality in that if an enemy, say, is tilting its head upwards for an animation and you're in front of it, your knuckle is just going to kind of hit their chin as opposed to hitting the enemy, which causes you to, even though you may be tapping on the enemy's weak spot, your attacks might get blocked if you decide to attack at the wrong time. So you have to be careful about that, because if you start spamming attacks and then they don't connect, your Pikmin just gets stunned and you run out of ammo, basically. So right here, this would be a very interesting situation in a multiplayer setting, because you and all your friends are going to get split up between these two rooms. However, you can sort of cheese it by standing on top of the barrier, and that allows you to attack all 4 sections as opposed to being constrained to just one. Anyways, into the cave we go. Right here is, honestly, the main reason I chose to use Knuckle instead of not getting it is so that I could destroy that block faster and also kill these green guys faster. The main reason that you would not want to get the Knuckle is for that room where it would split up you and your friends. Because with Knuckle, you have to stand on top of the barrier to try and shoot the enemies, but it can be very inconsistent to that barrier. Sometimes your Pikmin, even if you whistle them, they aren't able to get on top of the barrier, so you're not able to actually throw your Pikmin even after whistling them. But if you don't have the Knuckle, you're able to just throw Pikmin over the barrier and hit enemies everywhere, regardless of which side you're on. Additionally, you're able to get a Knuckle in this last room, so because the Knuckle is basically required to beat the last boss, if I were to choose not to get the Knuckle, then I would just collect the one that popped up right there. Anyway, we destroy the walls. I noticed the guy to the left has decided to charge forward, so I push the guy to the right out of the way so that he can move over closer to the edge. And then you use the Knuckle's strange property of pushing enemies to push those guys over the edge instead of destroying their weak spots. Now that's a lot easier said than done, because the Knuckles don't push in the direction you're firing from. If you're standing to the enemy's left and you fire a Knuckle at it, the enemy isn't necessarily going to move right. It's actually going to move in the direction perpendicular to its weak spot. So even if you're standing to the enemy's left, if you hit a weak spot that's pointing north and you fire from the west, the enemy will get pushed south, which is very bizarre. Anyway, right here I use another trick that's, if I didn't explain it, you wouldn't even realize it's happening. But you have to move to the right at a very specific time so that the Bulborb will destroy the question block instead of getting stuck. If you go at the wrong time, the Bulborb will actually get stuck, and then you have to spend a bit of extra time destroying the question mark yourself. And the way you do that is just, I listen to the song and I count 7 beats. So on the 7th beat after the song starts playing, that's when I go. Anyway, this is one of those areas where I'm going to get way ahead of my ally, and because of the camera on the TV is trying to sort of divide its focus between me and the ally, it's going to be nearly impossible to tell what's going on. But I take a shortcut, just go over those blocks instead of destroying them, and then I tap the glow mushroom to get a bit more light. The gimmick with these dark areas is that you can't see anything unless you touch a glow mushroom, and then when you touch a glow mushroom, the area around your character gets illuminated. Anyways, we are descending even further down into this cave. If I remember correctly, this is the final floor of the cave, and also the only level where you actually switch power-ups. The Vine is way better than the Knuckle for the boss. And we're going to whistle our ally, because if you go too close to those guys, they'll wake up. And if they wake up, then the bombs aren't going to be able to kill them all. Unfortunately, my bomb was slightly misplaced, so one of them survived, but having one of them survive is way better than having like 6 of them survive. And if they wake up early, they'll all scatter about, and more than likely your bomb will only kill 1 or 2 of them. And your ally isn't smart enough to realize that, so sometimes he'll just go and wake all of them up. Anyway, I hesitate to throw the rock because he's not going to be shaking off Pikmin while he's spitting out spiked balls, and he's more likely to get stunned whenever he's at a lower health. But yeah, that boss went very smoothly because he was stunned by one of the rocks, and then my Pikmin did the rest of the work. Also, this level has cute Easter eggs where at the start and end there's a little castle that looks a lot like Mario's castle from SMB1, so that's fun. And now we're moving on to the final time challenge. This one is interesting in that it's the only level in the game that I actually look at the TV instead of the gamepad. Something that you may not realize if you haven't played this is that the gamepad's perspective is different than the TV's perspective. The TV perspective might have a more isometric camera angle, but then at some parts the gameplay goes to sort of behind Olimar's back instead of having this more top-down view that you're seeing on the TV. And by behind his back, I don't mean it becomes a third-person game, but more so that the camera gets tilted so that the sort of forward direction is parallel to the ground as opposed to sort of going into the ground. It's difficult to explain, and if I had a way of directly recording my gamepad, I would definitely stream that as opposed to the TV screen. But the TV screen is still serviceable, so it's the best I can do, unfortunately. That beeb almost got me. You have to pay extra attention whenever you're dealing with a large crowd of beebs, because if you're not paying close attention, and this has happened to me numerous times, one of them is just gonna peg you, and you're not even gonna see him coming. Anyway, we run away from the bombs. Here's one part where the ally does help out quite a bit by collecting this timer for me. That is super nice that he does that. And this part is the part where I actually will glance at the TV at, because the gamepad perspective is very zoomed in on Olimar, so there might be enemies near the bottom that you can see on the TV, but on the gamepad, I had no idea that that guy on the bottom was still alive, so I might have just been chilling at the top, waiting for the thing to turn blue, not even realizing that I had left one alive. So, pro tip, look at the TV there to see if all the enemies are dead. And with that, we are moving on to the final level, and the final boss. Now this boss has probably about the same amount of RNG as the stage 4 boss, but it generally feels a bit more consistent because at the very least there's a bit more that you can do about it because you're at a much higher level. And also you have the bind, so it makes it easier to actually hit the enemy. But yeah, we're gonna break the blocks and get to level 10. Similar to Pinchipede, getting to level 10 is crucial here. If you're at level 9, you're just not going to be able to do as much damage because you have fewer Pikmin. So, yeah. Anyway, my ally does not have his priorities in order because even though I was pressing the button, he decided he needed to go collect more nectar instead of helping me open the gate. So the reason that this boss is very frustrating is because that attack there, where he swings down at the ground, is the only thing he can do that will not shake off Pikmin. That spin attack, he'll shake Pikmin off. His sort of charge attack that you're seeing right now, that shakes off Pikmin. So there's no point in throwing Pikmin at him while he's doing that. He also, in addition to 2 of his 3 attacking moves shaking off Pikmin, also just has a shaking off Pikmin move that's only purpose is to shake off Pikmin. But fortunately we were able to stun him with the rock, enabling us to deal damage and then deal the final hit with the rock. Timing ends when the screen fades to black here, so watch as the rocket goes and the timer stops. And yeah, that was the run. Hope you enjoyed.